We've been talking about making amends, step 9. And I got thinking when I was putting this message together this week that maybe we've heard a lot about that and we know what we need to do. And I have over the last number of months been asked questions about what do you mean when you talk about working a program? And what am I supposed to look for when I look for a sponsor? And what sort of things can wreck my sobriety, wreck my recovery? And so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time tonight and just talk about what I believe working a program is, or what working a program for me is, and what I kind of think a sponsor should do for you. And then we're going to discuss a few little things that many of you that work with me have heard many times over and over and over again. This is going to be like a repeat. They could likely give this message, but the things that will wreck our recovery. So one of the questions that gets asked a lot is, why do I need a sponsor? Why can't I do this program on my own? And believe it or not, that question gets asked a lot. And I believe that a sponsor is somebody that you can work with. It's a mentor that will guide you and help you through the difficult times that come in sobriety, the difficult times that come while you're working recovery. But I find for myself that a sponsor helps me through life issues. When I'm not sure just what the next step is I should take, if I'm a bit confused about what I should be doing, I can talk to my mentor, I can talk to my sponsor, and often that person doesn't have to say anything. The answers kind of come out in the conversation. A lot of people say, I'm looking for a sponsor that thinks a lot like I do. That's what I want in a sponsor. I don't think that you want a sponsor that thinks like you. If you're early in recovery, your thinking is really screwed up. And if you get a sponsor that has the same screwed up thinking, you're not going to get very far. So you want somebody in sobriety that's got a good number of months, like maybe several years under their belt, that are working a good program, that are showing you that they are working a good program, that they could help you do the same thing. You want somebody that's brave enough to call you on your stuff. If I wasn't in church, we'd call it something else. But when you have a terrible disposition, a terrible attitude, and a terrible thought process, you want somebody that's going to say, hey, give your head a shake. Pull your head out of your butt. Take a look at what you're saying and maybe look at it from a different angle. That's the kind of a guy or a girl that's going to help you get through issues. Sponsors, we often hear, I want a sponsor that's going to help me work through the steps. And I believe that that's okay, but I don't believe that that's an important role of a sponsor. You can go to big book studies, you can go to step meetings, you can do all kinds of step work without necessarily a sponsor. Not that a sponsor won't help you with the odd step here and there, but my experience has been sponsors are pretty busy. If they're well-liked people, they take on a lot of sponsees and they can't possibly work with every one of them to work through their steps. So somebody that will work with you, will talk to you every day, will give you some good guidance and listen to you, to me, is far more important. A sponsor should be questioning you a little bit about what's going on in your life. When you phone with a problem, have you been going to meetings? Have you been doing any prayer and meditation? Have you been doing any service work in your community or in your groups? Have you been reaching out to others? Have you been sharing in meetings? Because you know what? Going to a meeting is okay, but just warming that chair doesn't do you or anybody else any good. Meetings are a two-way street. Meetings help you hear from other people some solutions to your problem, but often you can give a solution or a sense of hope to a newcomer that comes by sharing in that meeting. So interaction and really partaking in the meeting helps everybody that's there, and particularly you. It's a well-known fact that even a terrible meeting, and we go to and have gone to meetings that we think are not maybe quite as good as others, but even going to a bad meeting, the serotonin levels in our brain go up and we walk away from that not such good a meeting feeling pretty good anyway. So meetings, whether they're good or bad, are good to go to. If you've been talking to the newcomers after the meetings and interacting with them and sharing a sense of hope with them, These are the basic things we need to do each and every day. They're part of our chemotherapy for our disease. We do have a terminally ill disease. This disease of addiction will kill us, some sooner than others if we don't get a grip on it. We understand that we are never recovered. One of my bugaboos is people that stand up here and say, I am a recovered, I know it's just a word, but I am a recovered alcoholic, or I'm a recovered addict. We're never recovered. We're in recovery, and we're in the process of recovery. The only thing we have to do to prove to ourselves that we're not recovered is go out and take one more drink, take one more hoot, take one more line, and we'll find out pretty quick that we're not recovered from anything. It's a daily reprieve that we get 24 hours at a time by working a program, by entering into prayer, meditation, going to meetings, talking to our sponsor, reading the big book, and doing service work are the basic things that will keep us in recovery. I like to think of it as our chemotherapy for our disease. We can put our disease into remission by doing those few things. On the issue, we hear this one a lot on anonymity. Oh, I don't want to tell anybody that I'm an alcoholic. I don't want to tell anybody that I'm an addict. And what we're doing by not telling people is we're giving ourselves an alternate plan B, we're giving ourselves a hiding space, and we're giving ourselves an excuse to go back out. The anonymity part of Alcoholics Anonymous is in the media and talking about other people and whatnot, but when it comes to our personal self, for me, I tell the whole world that I have a problem, that I am an alcoholic, with hopes that nobody's going to encourage me to go out and drink, go out and drug, and my friends that are around me are going to try to protect me from doing that. If we keep it a secret, if we don't tell the people we work with, if we don't tell some of our close friends that we have a problem, they're going to be encouraging us to drink or to drug or to do the things we shouldn't be doing, and before long, we're going to be back out. So that's one of the big things that we need to do, is we need to be very honest with people and just tell them we're experiencing difficulties. I mean, my line when I first quit drinking is, now I gave it up. I've spilt more liquor than you guys have drank, and it's your turn now, not mine. Whatever you want to do, you use whatever excuse you want, but tell people you don't drink, you don't drug, and you may maintain your sobriety. Here's another one that's big on the list of reasons that we might relapse, and it's relationships. And they have been a ruin of many, many, many people's recoveries. Our general rule of thumb is no relationships in the first year of recovery, and that's none. But most people kind of fail that one, but that's what we promote and push. And we always say you can have all the sex you want in the first year of recovery as long as it's by yourself. See? Okay, because the relationships is what takes us out. We get into a relationship with somebody, that becomes more important than our recovery. Recovery in itself, in early recovery, is a full-time job. It takes all of your work. It takes 24 hours a day, one day at a time, to stay clean and sober, working the steps, learning what you need to do. If you put a relationship into there, that sometimes becomes a full-time job, and suddenly you've got two full-time jobs in one time space, and it doesn't work. And I'll guarantee you, generally the recovery will go to the back seat, and the relationships will go to the front. Getting into relationships usually consumes all your energy and all your time. And once you stop going to meetings, it's really hard to go back to them. Once you stop calling your sponsor, the phone starts to weigh a few more pounds each and every day. After 2 or 3 weeks, you haven't called your sponsor, you can't pick that phone up because we're too busy in a relationship. Relationships come later on in recovery when you're feeling a bit better about yourself, when you've gone through some of the steps and you work through some of the issues, then maybe you're ready. Maybe you're ready to start entwining a relationship. A lot of us get into recovery 3 or 4 months after we're into recovery, we're back into the workforce, another full-time job. So recovery, work, and then a relationship. We've got 3 full-time jobs coming at us, and it becomes overwhelming, and pretty soon we go back out. Another issue is believing that we're only addicted to one substance. And I so often hear this from drug users, say, oh no, cocaine was my drug of choice, I can drink. It's no problem, I never had a problem with alcohol. And I know Brad and I have both done this a lot, and we turn it around on them and say, look, cocaine was never a problem for me. Alcohol was my problem, so is it all right then with your philosophy here that I go out and use cocaine? And they look at me and say, well, you're nuts. No, you wouldn't do that. So I look back at them and say, well, they're nuts as well, because alcohol is a drug, and we'll take them back to their drug of choice sooner than later. And I know there's many people in here that have tried it and will likely verify that that's in fact true. I see somebody holding their hand up back here. Was that you, Thomas? Yes. I mean, it happens every time, although some people think, oh no, it's not. And it goes along with other things. So believing that you're only addicted to one thing is a mistake. We're addicts. We can be addicted to anything. Anything that makes us feel good. Anything that gives us a bit of sense of pleasure, we'll become addicted to. We can become addicted to food, to gambling, to sex, to relationships, to pornography, to anything. Anything that makes us feel good, we'll become addicted to it, give it a sense of time. And we will transfer our addictions because of that. So we quit drugs or we quit alcohol, then we move on to something else that's going to make us feel good as well if we're not working a good, strong program. In how it works, honesty is mentioned 5 or 6 times. Honesty is something else, or dishonesty is something that will actually take you out very quickly as well. Being selectively honest can be a real detriment to our sobriety and lead us to relapse pretty darn quick. There's an expression around the meeting rooms that says that we're only as sick as our deepest secrets. In how it works, it talks about not just being honest, but being rigorously honest. When we're talking about people with grave mental disorders and saying that they too become better and can be cured of this problem if they become honest. So even people with mental disorders can get cured if they become honest. With the HOW principle, honesty, open-mindedness, and willing, how many of us apply these principles to our day-to-day program and in fact in our day-to-day life? So we need to be honest, open-minded, and willing to move forward in our programs. Our addictions feed on deceit, distrust, and dishonesty. We are driven to any lengths to get our next fix or our next drink. We violate all our personal values, no matter how strong or how good they are. I challenge each of you to think about the values that you may have compromised when you were drinking or drugging. Just don't shout them out, Thomas. Please be quiet, but okay. But just think about them. Just keep them to yourself. What values did you compromise when you were drinking and drugging? And those are things that you don't want to go back to again. We often had no concern for the harmful consequences that may come as a result of our using. Lost homes, lost families, lost children, going to jail, criminal records, lost friends, lost money and security, and in many cases, death. And despite of all these harmful consequences, we continue to do our addictive behavior. If we want to move on with our lives, we want to prevent relapse, we must become rigorously honest. Making amends. So here it is. Here's step 9 already in here. See? I brought it together. I knew I could. Many of you were wondering how all of this was going to tie into step 9 and making amends. Well, here it is. I want to say here, not making amends is a mistake that could mess up your recovery as well. To develop a strong spiritual foundation for recovery, it's essential that we accept full responsibility for our harmful and our hurtful behavior. We must attempt to repair the damage that we have caused in our relationships with family, with friends, and loved ones. In recovery, we have accepted many difficult tasks. We have surrendered and accepted life on life's terms. No one promised us it would be easy. We came to believe that we could develop a better life for ourselves and our loved ones. That being said, we soon discovered we couldn't do it on our own. We needed help. One of the greatest challenges in recovery is taking responsibility for our harmful and our hurtful behaviors and making amends to those we love and care about and to those that we have hurt. This action is essential if we're going to enjoy any of the benefits and the promises of recovery. Amends are also necessary to reestablish and rebuild trust. So the promises that Josh read earlier tonight come true when we're halfway through our program and working through step 9. And they certainly do come true, don't they, Josh? Yes, okay. The scripture that I chose for today was 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 22. And Bill did a little work on this one for me. Bill's our spiritual guru around here in Bible study and figuring out the scriptures, and I always appreciate what he has to say about them. And he wrote this, he says, Paul's advice to Timothy is appropriate for us too. We need to run from the places and situations that are likely to tempt us. We should avoid spending time with people who will lead us to relapse. Instead, we should be with people who will encourage us, support our progress in recovery and our spiritual growth. If we don't have friends or activities that support our recovery, we need to seek out, get involved in a community of godly and supportive people. Truer words were never spoken, and that comes out of our scripture today. So here's another one. Thing that will take us back out, and that's pursuing recovery with less energy than pursuing our addiction. We must pursue recovery with at least as much, if not more, effort that we put into our addiction. We would go to any lengths to get a fix or to get a drink, to organize and plan a party, to organize and plan an event that might have some alcohol or some drugs involved in it, that would lead us down the road of dishonesty and down to criminal behavior in many cases. If we would work that hard to get a drink or to get some drugs, doesn't it make sense that we put a bit stronger effort into focusing on getting better and getting recovery? We know and understand that the battle is often in our thinking, and our brain is what gets in the way of our thinking. The organ that is diseased is our brain, and it wants a dopamine hit all the way along. I always jokingly say our brain has a contract on our ass, and it does. I know so many people that will go out and run into a bad situation, and they'll be saying, no, I don't want to, put their hand out, and pretty soon they've got that crack pipe in their mouth or whatever. It's their brain that goes on autopilot, and it goes. So we need to be working hard to change our thinking process. If you're like me, if you're like me, one is not a word that I ever used. I never would have one drink. If I could only go for one drink, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't bother, because there was no point in having one drink. And I know many of you are the same way. One drink, one lime, whatever isn't enough. We have one, we need to carry on to the end. We must work hard each and every day to offset the battle of our brain. We do that by working a program, prayer, meditation, meetings, daily talks with our sponsor and other mentors, hanging out with sober and clean people, and staying away from the old haunts and our old friends, to just name a few. We have to change everything that we do. All our old ways have to go, our old friends have to go, our old haunts have to go, and we need to start developing new places and new things to do. We only have a daily reprieve, and if we fail to continue the work, relapse is just around the corner. Here's another one, feeling special or unique, and we run into this often with people that come into recovery out of the work world, business people that are what I'd call functionally, they're functioning in their community. They think they're doing all right, and they think that they're just a bit better than the rest of us. And they're unique, so they don't have to work this program just the same as everybody else. This program isn't really for them. I can see how it works for hundreds of thousands of other people, but I'm different. It doesn't necessarily work for me the same as it will for everybody else. So that feeling of being different, the feeling of being unique and just a bit better is not good. Generally, we ask them, and they'll tell us, well, you know what, I haven't lost my house, I haven't lost my job, I haven't lost my family, I haven't lost my children. And then we'll say to them, just put yet behind all of those statements, because it's coming. You just haven't got there yet. You haven't reached your bottom yet. We're all in this. We're all the same. Our addicts acts the same way. We're all just in a different place in our journey, in our addiction, and our bottoms are all at little different levels. But if we continue, if we keep drinking and we keep drugging, we know that it's going to get better. It's going to get worse. It's going to get much more severe, and we're going to lose all of those things as we go along. With some, it's jail, some is losing friends or family. With others, it's realizing early that they're powerless and want to make a change in their lives. So many people do intervene and get help and go into recovery long before they hit the bottoms that some of the rest of us have hit. The other problem is believing that sobriety will fix everything. Recovery begins with breaking the bonds of addiction. That is the first step. Recovery is ultimately about recovering our spiritual or true self. There's lots of work to do in many aspects of our lives. We need to do the additional work that sobriety allows us to do. So we need to get sober first, really kind of figure out where we're at, and then start working on the inner, deeper problems that are there. We need to self-discover what we are and find ourselves, so to speak. I kind of don't like that term, go find ourselves, but we need to find out what we're all about and really where some of the hurts are coming from. This work may include counseling and a lot of stage 2 work, and find out what makes us tick. That is a message. That's a message for another night, and one that maybe Brad will talk about. Some of the family of origin work and inner child and some of that stuff that we need to work on once we sober up. There are many more things that we can go into on this subject, and I'm sure that you can all think of other reasons that we might go out and relapse. There's thousands of them, but these are just a few. I hope some of this was food for thought for all of you, and you go away thinking about what changes you can make in your program so that you are better able to fight off the desire or the urge to go back out. What you can do before you get the screw it stage, because by that time it's way too late. If you haven't got a sponsor, go look for a sponsor. Look in the meeting rooms, find somebody that has some good sobriety under their belt and somebody that's willing to take your phone calls each and every day. I believe that it's important, especially when you first get a sponsor, to talk to them every day, even if it's for a 2-second talk saying, hey, everything's going great. Because the day that things aren't going so well, if you haven't talked to him or her, it'll be very difficult for you to make that call. And it might be the difference between you staying sober that day or not. It might be the difference between life and death, to be honest with you, because our disease is we are critically ill with it. For those of you that are alcoholics and believe that maybe it's not as serious as somebody that uses fentanyl, I want to assure you that more people die each and every year from alcohol and alcohol-related deaths than all of the drug use put together, including fentanyl. So even with the fentanyl crisis that we hear about, and it's so in our face every day, alcohol is still killing more people than fentanyl. We need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of how serious our disease is, and we need to be aware of what we need to do to stay clean and sober, working our program, living our life one day at a time, and coming to gatherings like this, going to other meetings, lots of prayer and meditation. So.